We're here today for one single reason: to cut the red tape of regulation. I am challenging my cabinet to find and remove every single outdated, unlawful, and excessive regulation currently on the books.
So that was President Trump almost a year ago pledging to remove regulations that have gridlocked Washington. And today he is going further, employing his cabinet members to get on board with his, quote, nickel plan.
I'm going to ask each of you to come back with a 5% budget cut from U of areas, departments, whether it's a secretary, an administrator, whatever. I've heard about the penny plan for 15 years. 1 penny every year per dollar. 1 penny every year. After 4 or 5 years, the country's in good shape. I'm saying, let's not do the penny plan. Let's do the 5 penny plan. We'll call it the nickel plan. At least it'll be a 1-year nickel plan.
So here now exclusively is the director of the Office of Management and Budget, Mick Mulvaney. Sir, good to have you with us today. I think that, conservatives will applaud that. I guess the question is accountability. How is the president going to follow through on this? When does he expect this 5% cut to all of these agencies to come to fruition?
Well, he asked all of the cabinet secretaries today to take the next 3 or 4 weeks to work with the Office of Management and Budget to do exactly that. I think it's noteworthy. What you saw was the public part of the meeting. When the press left and we had the private part of the meeting, the last 2 times that we've talked about budgets in the cabinet meeting, he's turned to me and asked me to talk about the budgets. Today, it was all the president. The president led the entire discussion. In fact, I didn't even say a word. This was the president's idea. He's leading this, and I think the cabinet secretary is going to take it very, very seriously.
All right. So here's what he said today about the last budget that you had to do. Watch this.
Last budget, we had to go because of the military. We had to fix our military. I made deals with the devil in order to get that done because we had to improve our military. Our military was depleted. It was in bad shape.
So, I think that was understood, that was kind of an exchange to get what you all wanted in defense spending, and you had to kind of swallow some other spending increases that maybe you would rather not have done. But I guess one of the big questions is, Republicans have had control of the House, the Senate, and the White House now since the president came into office, but there's a good potential that they're about to lose the House. So why now? I mean, doesn't this feel a little late to the table?
No, first of all, keep in mind, one of the reasons we've struggled, had to make that deal with the devil that the president mentioned, is that appropriations bills, like most bills, not all, but most bills, take 60 votes in the Senate. And since Republicans don't have 60 votes in the Senate, that automatically implies Democrats have to participate. It has to be bipartisan. And the one thing that's really bipartisan in Washington, D.C. is spending more money. It's the way you essentially buy Democrat votes. So that's why we did what we did. You and I can talk maybe another time about the control of the House. I'm not as convinced as you are that that's getting ready to happen. But regardless, these are the president's priorities. He takes the deficit seriously. He's taking spending seriously. We're doing a great job of growing the economy and getting new revenues into the government. In fact, our revenues are all-time highs, but the deficit is still increasing. So we have to look at the spending side of the ledger, and that's what you saw today.
So I guess what's the time frame for that? When would you be able to get this done? And, who knows what the outcome is going to be in the House? I think it's anybody's guess at this point. There are a lot of toss-up states as you look at it. But what's the time frame for cutting spending? It does feel like it's sort of the wire may be running out.
No, keep in mind, we just ended the fiscal year. Our fiscal year ended the end of September, so actually just starting this fiscal year. So now the money is all spent for 2019, which is just starting. We're actually starting, believe it or not, right now on the 2020 budget. So what we roll out in March or February of next year is actually already started to get into the details right now. So this is the exact appropriate time to have it and the normal time to have these types of discussions. So the president's doing the right thing at the right time.
All right, let's talk about the deficit, which you mentioned. The Treasury says it's $779 billion. That's a 17% increase over the previous year. It's the highest deficit that we've seen in 6 years. And you pointed out there are so many amazing positive strengths that we're seeing in the economy when you look at jobs, when you look at the cuts that have happened in regulation and what that has unleashed in the U.S. economy. I think by anyone's measure, that's an extraordinary story. But the deficit is a tough picture.
Sure. Well, the deficit's actually not that tough a picture. It's easy in this sense, in that it only has two pieces: money in and money out. And money is now coming in because of the economic policies that the president has put into place. Money's coming in at a record rate. It's just going out even faster, in large part because of the Senate Democrats that I just mentioned. So it's actually a fairly simple mathematical calculation. We just need to figure out a way to do better on spending. And the president gets that. We will grow the government. We've proven that. We're going to continue to grow the government. We continue to think that this expansion is still on very strong fundamentals. But if we're going to see meaningful changes to the deficit, we have to focus on the money out, the spending at the same time.
But many would say that you also have to focus on entitlements. Mitch McConnell has spoke about this recently. You really can't make a significant dent in the spending in this country without touching that so-called third rail. Are you prepared to do that?
A couple different things, because that's actually not true. The Social Security only accounts for about $85 billion of deficit this year. Medicare, I think, is about $300 billion of deficit. So everything else is everything else. So when you say entitlements, and Mitch McConnell talks about entitlements, Social Security and Medicare are a challenge to the deficit several years out. Right now, they're actually not what's driving the deficit this year. We had things like hurricane spending. We had a bunch of different things. We had a CAPS deal that increased spending last year. So it's actually the discretionary spending that's having a big impact right now. Keep in mind that the president's budget that we introduced last year was the largest mandatory spending reduction proposal in history, but it did not touch Social Security or Medicare. There's a lot of other entitlement programs that we could fix, that we could reform without touching core Social Security and core Medicare. We've already offered that, and we would welcome that discussion. But again, everything on this topic needs 60 votes in the Senate, and that's where we hit a roadblock.